satellite and wireline participants in your area. Had this been an actual emergency, the attention signal you just heard would have been followed by emergency information, news, or instructions. This is only a test. We now return you to regular programming.
The television is a special tool used by the elite to send a message to the public. Everything a politician or a news anchor says is only said if they are allowed to say it. Politicians, news anchors, and Hollywood actors have one thing in common: they are all actors reading a script, being used to influence and distract the public from what's really going on. They are nothing but puppets, masks, actors for the elite. The only job of a politician is to read a script and sign papers to satisfy the public. He has no real power. Here you will see Stephen Harper read from the same script as Australian Prime Minister John Howard. It is about the Iraq War, which was part of an agenda. The agenda was neither left nor right, nor did it play favorites amongst nations. These speeches were written and agreed upon by the globalist controllers, part of the cabal, and then handed to the prime ministers to read to the people of their respective countries. Democracy never entered the picture. We never had a choice. Another thing to remember is that Canada also provided both equipment, command and troops for the Iraq War.
The world judged the Iraqi regime was a dangerous aggressor. In the interests of world peace and regional security, the community of nations required Iraq to surrender its offensive arsenal, its chemical and biological weapons, and abandon its nuclear weapons program. Iraq agreed to comply.
The world judged the Iraqi regime to be a dangerous aggressor. In the interests of world peace and regional security, the community of nations expelled Iraq from Kuwait, required Iraq to surrender its offensive arsenal, its chemical biological weapons, and to abandon its nuclear weapons program. Iraq agreed to comply.
Iraq's continued defiance of the community of nations presents a challenge
which must be addressed.
Presents a challenge which must be addressed. It is inherently dangerous to allow a country such as Iraq to retain weapons of mass destruction, particularly in the light of its past aggressive behaviour.
If the world community fails to disarm Iraq, we fear that other rogue states will be encouraged to believe that they too can have these weapons, these most deadly of weapons, to systematically defy international resolutions, and that the world will do nothing to stop them. That is the ultimate nightmare, which the world must take decisive and effective steps to prevent. Possession of chemical, biological, or nuclear weapons by terrorists would constitute a direct, undeniable, and lethal threat to the world, including to Canada and its people. The world has tried other means for years,
but so far to no avail. We cannot walk away from the threat that Iraq's continued possession of weapons of mass destruction constitutes to its region and to the wider world. In the final analysis, Mr. Speaker, the absolute conviction of the government is that disarming Iraq is necessary for the long-term security of the world and is therefore manifestly in the national interest of Australia.
In the final analysis, disarming Iraq is necessary for the long-term security of the world, to the collective interests of our historic allies, and therefore manifestly, Mr. Speaker, it is in the national interest of this country.
The only job of a news anchor is to read a script. They can only say what they are allowed to say, even down to the local level. Here you can see anchors reporting the exact same story, the exact same way.
In Consumer News, economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step.
Well, it's okay. You can admit it if you have bought an item or two or maybe 10 for yourself.
It's okay. You can admit it. You've bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay. You can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay. You can admit it if you bought an item or 2 or 10 for yourself.
It's okay. You can admit it if you've bought an item or 2 or 10.
Well, if you filled up your gas tank lately, then you don't need us to tell you that gas prices are back on the rise.
You don't need us to tell you that gas prices are back on the rise.
You don't need us to tell you that gas prices are back on the rise.
You don't need us to tell you that gas prices are back on the rise.
You don't need us to tell you that gas prices are back on the rise.
You don't need us to tell you that gas prices are back on the rise.
You don't need us to tell you that gas prices are back on the rise.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors.
There is no such thing as a republic, or a democracy. There is no such thing as freedom of press on this planet, but an illusion of what we are allowed to see and know. The entire world is nothing but a reality show for us to watch on television. Absolutely nothing an official tells you, whether is in politics, education, the media, or in any scientific field is the truth, but only an approved interpretation or statement for events, or statistics. There is so much disinformation and manipulation out there, even for us truth seekers, it is hard to see through the fog. Disinformants have infiltrated every organization we know of, which include religious groups, spiritualism, including New Age, alien theorism, the Truth Movement, alternative media, third-party politicians, and all other forms of truth-seeking conspiracy theorist sources. Sources like Ron Paul, Mark Dice, Jesse Ventura, Alex Jones, Daryl Anka's Basher, RT News, InfoWars, Prison Planet, and other sources we look to are there just to disinform us from the truth, keeping those of us who are more aware of what goes on around us from seeing the absolute truth, and trapping us in a reality where the partial truth we have already discovered is not to be questioned, so that we believe what we have awakened, when in reality we are still partially in the dark. If enough of the public were to wake up, they would most likely want to elect one of these disinformants I have listed. These double agents will only bring a slightly better society, but not the best possible one, and as puppets, we would not be given complete freedom. Civilization will eventually become corrupt again, and many scientific secrets would still be out of our reach, and many secrets of the universe and our reality would still be kept from us. It is important to question everything you learn, and everyone you learn it from. It is possible that I am a disinformant trying to mislead the viewer. Telling you to question me could be seen as a strategy to get the viewer to just trust what I say. My point being, do not let others influence the conclusion you would have come up with using your own common sense. Most of the time, we are told what the conclusion is, while being presented the facts, and we either accept it or deny it. We have never had any rights, we have never had a choice in any major decision that affects the state of the world. There is no plot to take over the world, or to control all governments. They already have, and always had some control of all nations. It is the degree of control that their goals are centered on. I say degree because no matter how many protests, no matter how many revolutions there have been, we have always been under the control of these bloodline families. Protesting and bringing about a revolution only pushes them back just a little bit. We never gain much, but a generation or two of a little change, with a gradual return of what previously we had previously fought against. The goal they have is to strip us of our rights with our consent. This is where all false flags in public schools as indoctrination come in. With the bombing of the Twin Towers on September 11th, they took our right to privacy, which we never had. This event only allowed what they have been doing for decades to be written into law. Their next step is not only to have complete control over humanity, but to depopulate as well. We have power in numbers, and could bring about change without having to have a revolution. There would not need to be any bloodshed. There never did. If the public realized what was really going on, they could turn their backs on the system, politicians, secret societies, and the elite to bring completely change the system without having to fight. They fear this could happen unless action is taken, and because of this reason, they seek to depopulate the human population.
We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.